Hey everyone, I'm Ben. I know Katie from high school debate, and I'm here today to talk about baseball.
Baseball. So I don't
Woo!
know anything about baseball except going to Dodgers games as a kid. So tell me about how you got into baseball and just tell me everything about it.
Sure. Everything about it?
Everything.
We're going to be here a lot longer than 10 minutes. How did I get into baseball? I think what I've heard, it's been to, see, I don't remember all the way back when I first got into it, but at least the story that my parents told me is I got into it through my dad. My dad's been a big baseball fan his whole life. He's from LA, so he's a Dodgers fan. Super happy that you guys finally got your little World Series championship this year. But there we go. You've been calling them the future world champion Los Angeles Dodgers for as long as I remember. So maybe now they are actually the world champ. Like, you can take the future out of it. So when I was in maybe first or second grade, my dad, I think, started getting me baseball cards as a way to really have me learn math. Like, on the back of baseball cards, you see the player statistics. They have all the numbers for how they did every year. And kind of the idea was it would be a way to get me into numbers. And there's all sorts of math you can do with baseball statistics. And then from there, the next logical progression was fantasy baseball.
Right.
Started doing fantasy baseball in maybe first or second grade, playing with my dad, my uncle, a few other people. We'd log on every weekend and I'd go and figure out who to pick up on my team, who to drop. And that was kind of how I got into it. And it was really at a time in like 2002, 2003 when the Yankees were really good. And much to my dad's chagrin, I think he wanted me to be a Mets fan or really anything other than the Yankees. But it was sort of tough to keep that from happening in those years. I mean, being in New York and the team being as good as it was at the time, it was kind of tough to stop.
Damn, that's amazing. So did you play Little League? Were you like that into baseball?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I played Little League maybe up through 8th grade. And the funny thing is I was really bad. I was never good at actually playing baseball. Like, it's a little sad. I used to go out in my backyard and like throw the ball against the pitch back, where you basically throw it and it like comes off and goes back to you. I used to do that all the time, and I would have a catch with my neighbor while waiting for the elementary school bus every day. But ultimately, I couldn't really hit. I was a really bad hitter. And I just kept doing it because I really loved the sport. But my parents would get to show up to the games and watch me strike out like, every like 3 times a game for years. And every year my mom would be like, "You sure you want to keep playing? You really want to keep playing baseball?" And then finally, when it came time to like decide whether or not to do it in high school, I mean, that's like a whole new level of competitiveness. And I sort of decided to call it quits and do a much more social activity of high school debate instead.
Exactly. And it seems like your life has not been worse for that change. So, but maybe in your next life you'll be, maybe your quarantine hobby will be more baseball. Who knows?
Probably a positive impact on my academic life, maybe a negative impact on my social life, but it all balances out over the years. I wasn't going to be a professional player.
Yeah. Well, that's fair. So what are some of the things that you do enjoy about being a baseball fan that's like unique to the sport itself?
Things unique to the sport, like compared to other sports or compared to doing things other than watching sports or watching baseball?
I mean, either. I guess if you don't have much of I guess because you were a baseball fan, like what do you enjoy about baseball compared to other things in life generally?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the great things about baseball, and I mean, baseball gets a lot of crap for being boring, for the games being long, for there not being a lot of action. And from what I've heard, I think it's very much the kind of thing where if you grew up playing it or if you grew up watching it, the games almost take on a little bit of a different meaning when you're watching them. So you can actually figure out what's like every time there's a pitch, there's a whole bunch of mind games that are going on, figuring out what pitch to throw, figuring out where to throw it, batter deciding whether to swing or not. There's all sorts of these tactical moves that kind of on the surface you might not notice if you're just a casual fan, but growing up watching the sport, it kind of figuring out what those mind games and actually getting invested in them comes a lot more naturally. So that's one part of it. But the other part of it is like baseball naturally is a sport where there's like a little bit of action and then there's long pauses. Like the pitcher waits between throwing pitches. And the nice thing about it is it makes it a really easy sport to kind of watch casually, to put on in the background, to go to a game and have a conversation with people. It's a lot harder to go to a basketball game and like have a conversation with someone because there's always action going on. And you're always on your feet. At a baseball game, you can kind of go and make it a social activity. You can go, you can hang out, you can get food, you can get beer, and actually turn it into like a full outing. And you still get to watch the game, but I think it's really good as just an outing in addition to like a form of entertainment.
Yeah, I have a lot of really fond childhood memories of just like being with my family at, a Dodgers game. And like, now that I'm vegan, it's weird to say this, but like my joy was like eating hot dogs and like hanging out with my family. And, it's really strange to kind of exist in a world now where, we can't do that. And I think even though I'm not like the biggest sports fan, I've definitely felt kind of just like how surreal it is to exist in quarantine. Is it like, I assume you similarly feel that way, because I'd imagine you go to ball games like all the time normally.
Yeah, I probably go to maybe 3 or 4 a year. I'm not going every weekend. I think the first few months of quarantine from March through maybe May or June, it was tough because there was nothing on TV. I mean, I remember when The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary came out, and everyone pounced on it because it was like the only sports related thing going on TV. So baseball coming back in late June, early July was actually really huge in terms of like my own personal happiness and just like being able to turn on the TV and watch something that was live and happening at this moment was really important and big in terms of like my broader happiness over the past bunch of months.
Yeah.
Definitely sad that it's over. 1 day a week of football is not as helpful as there actually being something on the TV every single night.
Oh my God. I can absolutely imagine that. So what are, I guess, taking things back a bit, what are some of your favorite like baseball facts or like stories or anything?
My favorite baseball facts or stories. I think in terms of stories, I've been to a few really cool games. I was at the last game at the old Yankee Stadium. I was at a few really cool playoff games. But I think my favorite baseball story, or at least my favorite experience, has been going to spring training with my dad. So starting when I was about 8 or 9, we started going down every year to Florida to kind of the preseason. Half the teams play in Florida, half the teams play in Arizona. And the games are the stadiums are a lot smaller. They're like these minor league stadiums. The like good players only play for a few innings, and a lot of them stick around and sign autographs and interact with the fans before the game. It's a lot more up close and personal than the regular season. And so we started going when I was maybe 8 or 9, and I have these really cool memories of being like 9 years old and standing outside the stadium waiting for players to come by and watching like A-Rod drive out in his Ferrari and stuff like that. It was kind of surreal being like that up close and personal to your heroes. I also got to witness the progression of what it was like doing that as like a cute little kid and like keep going year after year and like becoming the person that the cute little kids push out of the way on their way to get autographs. Like we used to always try and sit right behind the dugout so that we could get foul balls or get autographs. And we started slowly moving back and back as the players stopped wanting to sign baseballs for me. So the last time we went, we were actually supposed to go this year on the weekend of my birthday, which would have been in mid-March. So that was sort of the first thing to hit the chopping block when COVID became an issue. But really hoping I get to go next year or the year after. We're 2 or 3 stadiums away from hitting everyone in Florida. So after that, it'll be on to Arizona.
You'll have to come visit. It's not far from LA. Well, that's amazing. And I think it does make me think a lot about how these things are traditions and are like really what brings families together. And I think that's definitely a really beautiful thing. So do you have any final parting comments about baseball or to fans or anything that you want to share?
I'm just there's a saying, and I'm completely forgetting what it is. There's some saying about like every day of the off season I wake up and hope for there to be baseball or something like that. I'll look it up after this. I know I'm completely butchering this quote, but first thing I did after the World Series ended was I Googled how many days until pitchers and catchers report to spring training and texted my dad, or 100-something days until pitchers and catchers. I mean, it's sort of the ritual. Like every day of the off season, you're just waiting for it to come back. And I'm super excited for next year, hoping the Yankees can finally win it all.
Hey, here's hoping. I'm on your side this time now that the Dodgers have what they've wanted. Well, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Whoops, that was my